Chapter 3. The Zuckertute. A child's entry into school marks a new stage in his life development and represents for the family an important event. Over the centuries, certain customs have evolved to commemorate his event. All these customs, intended to render for the child the beginning of school, the embarkation on his new segment of life, so something special, and also to sweeten his experience for him, to stimulate him, so that he would not be afraid of school, but would feel encouraged to make his most of these learning experiences. Dr. Rudi Schulz, director of the School Museum in Berlin. What pageantry! I have to admit that I am taken in. I, who know almost innately by now not to expect a childhood, am unashamedly caught up in this one symbol of youth unique to the land of my birth. I have seen children proudly walk to their first day of school with a Zuckertute, a horn-shaped bag of sweets, which parents traditionally offer to help their children begin their academic career in a positive note. No one will have to bribe me to go to school. I want very much to learn, but the added temptation of a special treat is almost too magical to contemplate. Often schools promote this tradition by hanging each child's sack on a tree, symbolic of the nurturing they can expect during their school careers. Students are also regaled with legends about the Zuckertüten, such as how it was picked from a tree growing in the schoolyard, or even down in the school's basement, where it was allowed to grow peacefully into full bloom just as school began. In April 1936, when my brother set off for the first day of Volksschule, public school, the Zuckertüte made my mother was one of his proudest possessions. Many times since then, I have examined the photo of Heini taken that day to discern more about his inner feelings. Certainly there is excitement at the prospect of learning, yet at the same time I can see a flicker of something else on his face, a taste of life uncertain ways, already causing him to look pensive, even apprehensive. On that special day, I accompany my mother and Heini to school. The air is crisp, the sun not yet risen above the tall buildings that line the narrow street. Heini, plagued by asthma and recurrent bronchitis, has been coddled by all his long life and finds it especially difficult separating from our mother. But on this morning I feel only a sense of anticipation. Some day I will follow that same custom and receive a special Zuckertüte to launch my own school career. For me the joy of learning would overcome my fears. "Mother, I want to join Heini in school," I blurt out, enthusiastically. "I'll be good, I promise. I'll sit in the back. I'll be as quiet as a mouse. I'll just watch. The teacher will not even see me." Mother takes me in her arms, and I snuggle close to her as she pats my head and caresses my face. "Your time will come," she says sweetly. We are living on a teeter-totter, our fate entirely in the hands of a government that blames the Jews for Germany's humiliations, much as an abusive husband accuses his spouse of provoking him into retaliatory action. Hitler offered his adopted countrymen the promise of a new, stronger Germany, an Aryan nation bound for glory by casting aside the weaker, more impure elements in its midst, and none seem more indispensable as to Hitler than Jews who, though small in number, are portrayed as the embodiment of evil. Hitler's words stir the basest of emotions, and the German people, once ennobled by Goethe, Beethoven and Bach, now march to primal chants. Jewish vilification is gradual at first, but as Hitler's power increases, so do the slogans "Juden raus," Jews out, and "Juden rein," clean of Jews, which, with the accompanying message "Juden sind unser Unglück," the Jews are our misfortune, become rallying cries. Hitler and his supporters try out these words in measured tones, to small groups at first. No one seems to cover their ears, to shrink back in alarm, to argue. So their voices become more strident and their speeches attract larger crowds. As Hitler institutes increasingly stronger measures against the Jews, he keeps a wary eye on the response his campaigns generate both inside Germany and beyond its borders. He relishes the world's attention on him and Germany during the 1936 Summer Olympics in Berlin. For several months leading up to the Games, the Nazi Party downplays its anti-Jewish campaign and carefully removes signs reading "Jews not welcome" from the view of foreign visitors and dignitaries. After the Olympics conclude, the campaign against Jews intensifies. We feel the hostility in Wuppertal whenever a spontaneous demonstration occurs. In actuality, these dramatic outpourings of affection for Hitler and his policies take place according to a preset schedule announced in advance, on the radio or in the newspaper. As a consequence, we usually know what areas to avoid. But as cautious as we are, some demonstrations are unavoidable. One morning, walking back from dropping off Heine, Mother and I hear drum beats and singing coming closer from the left. Mother's hands seek mine, and our pace hastens. We turn the corner and Mother's face turns white as sheet, as we find ourselves surrounded by a large crowd loudly singing Die Fahne hoch, raise high the flag. In an instant we are trapped on our sides by crowds of fervent singers stomping their feet and waving small paper swastikas. I'm terrified by what looks to me like a sea of rabbit faces. Through the crowd I see a military parade proceeding down the street. The drumbeat is so loud it hurts my ears. My heart racing, I clutch Mother's hand tighter, the world looking like it is spinning. The more invigorated the crowd becomes, the more I feel suffocated, as though the oxygen supply is limited and my mother and I, small and shrinking, are increasingly being cut off from a vital life force. My mother holds my hand tight to reassure me, but she's unable to stop shivering. Her uncontrolled tremors pass unwittingly to me. Soon my knees tremble and my chest tightens. Breathing becomes nearly impossible for us both. Mother surreptitiously scans by the crowd to catch sight of a friendly face. No one returns her gaze. They are completely swept up in the tidal wave of emotions aroused by chants of Frauen und Mädchen, die Juden sind unser Unverlust. Women and children, the children are your ruin. Fortunately, their very frenzy proves to be our salvation. So engrossed is the swelling crowd by their spontaneous rally that Mother and I are able, ever so slowly, to extricate ourselves and move to the periphery of the gathering. Regaining her composure, she whispers to me, "We'll go home now, we'll walk naturally," as if we have nothing to fear. But as we cautiously return home, repetitive shouts ringing in our ears, all the way I notice beads of sweat dripping down her face.
You've been listening to the third chapter of Sonia's Song, written by Sonia Korn-Grimani, read by the author. Sonia's Song is published by Grouse Press. More information about her beautiful memoir can be found on the web at claygrouse.com/Sonia's-song.